Hey Daniel, how's it going in Puerto Vallarta?
Hi, Risa. Good. Things are great. The weather is barely cracking 80 degrees, so this is kind of nice and cool for us.
Wow, what an amazing time to be there. I mean, the
Yeah.
winter is always just, yeah. I won't even tell you what it's like in New York right now because we just cracked, I think we went up into the 20s today, which was very exciting.
Did you get out your sunblock?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you guys have
Well,
been
we're
having
going to
like a
focus on Puerto Vallarta today.
yes,
And
beautiful
this is actually a
tropics.
great time to be talking about this, thinking about this. We've talked about this quite a bit.
Mhm.
Why Puerto Vallarta is such a great place to retire. It's always on people's top 10 lists, around the world. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons why. Maybe people who are not familiar with PV, may not know all the reasons. So you're going to educate us, right? on
Yes.
all the reasons. I mean, you've lived there for how many years now?
Um, I moved here October 2003, so it's been 19 years. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been coming down for 21 years. But living here full time has been 19, and I've seen the city grown considerably. I mean, when I moved to PV, I mean, people knew of Vallarta, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. I mean, it just seems like the spotlight hit the city maybe around 10, 11 years ago, and they haven't looked back. And it's kind of reflective in what you see. There's a lot of growth, a lot of money being invested into infrastructure, and you've got people moving here from all over the world, but particularly from the United States and Canada. They want to get out of that cold weather and come down to the tropics.
Yeah, I mean, the sunsets, if anybody listening has ever seen a sunset in Vallarta, it's like you can then go and die because
Yeah, it's quite
seriously,
magical.
they are just so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, especially in the summertime. I don't know, particularly in the summertime, when the sun's setting over the Pacific, and one of those was it Pocahontas when they talk about the colors of the wind. I mean, when you look up in the sky, you just see grays and orange and yellows and pink. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's beautiful.
So why do you think it's such a popular place for people to retire?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you should say that. When I came down to PV, I thought, okay, I'm going to Mexico vacation because I'd been to Tijuana before, right? I mean, that's living in LA. We used to go down there and party when I was younger. I thought, okay, I'm going to go Mexico and come back. But when I got here, it just felt really different. I mean, we've talked about this before. You just step off that plane and you just feel this decompression. You just feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off your shoulders. And Vallarta is in the Bay of Banderas, which is one of the largest natural bays in the world, and PV is smack in the center. So the bay is like a crescent moon, and Vallarta is right in the middle. And you've got the Sierra Madre Mountains on the east and the Pacifics on the west, and they're just both so majestic and beautiful to look at. And you've got this little tiny, well, was a little tiny town. Geographically, it's still the same, but it's like a big little city now. And you're just kind of going through this colonial historic area, and you have cobblestone streets, the old church in Guadalupe and El Centro by the Malecon, and you're seeing all these old little homes, and it's just so charming, so relaxing, so peaceful. And then you enter the romantic zone, which is part of downtown South, as we call it. And there, you got all the restaurants, the cafes, Los Muertos Beach, the pier is there. So in this very small little geographic area, it's just charm and energy and peace, and the people are just so cool, so nice. They're very laid back. No one's in a rush. That's kind of one of the beauties of living in a beach resort town. And they're just very friendly and just inviting. So you make a lot of friends, and all of that just kind of it's what it's all about. You just kind of don't want to live in this stressful big city day in and day out. And I just really connected with the people here, and it seems like the rest of the world has too.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you definitely want a good pair of walking shoes because walking
Yes.
on that cobblestone can be hazardous if you're not used to cobblestone. And it's also quite hilly. Like hillier than, like a Playa del Carmen or other parts or Cabo, whatever, that are just so flat. But
Yeah.
I love that as well, right? Because of course, if you're living in the hills, there's so many places where you can get water views, right?
Yes.
That's also the
And
kind
that's
of the
really
bonus
key.
of.
Yeah, when you're living in the flats, I mean, you pretty much have to be on the beach to get any sort of ocean view, right? But here in PV, because of the mountains, the Sierra Madres, being able to live up there, not only do you have the beautiful sunset views over the Pacific, but you can also sometimes, depending on where you're at, you can see the city of Puerto Vallarta and all the city lights, all the fireworks, and you can see the northern or southern part of the bay, depending on where you're at. So that really offers, something for everyone. I mean, if you want to live in the flats, you can, but you don't want to be in all the craziness sometimes, like the romantic zone. But having the mountains and being able to be elevated a little bit just kind of offers a totally different perspective, which is really nice. And I lived in the mountains for a while, and it was really
You
great.
sure did.
Yes, you were there, remember?
Yes, walking your dogs uphill, you know.
Well, you'll be happy to know I sold the place.
I know. Well, I mean, those views were ridiculous, like ridiculous, like
Yeah, so
amazing, amazing views.
if that condo resale was on the California coastline, I wouldn't be able to afford it. I mean, it would be in the millions of dollars, and don't even mention the property tax. And that's another reason why people, you know, like to move to PV and Mexico in general is the property tax here is just so low. I mean, for that condo, 2,700 square feet, I was paying around $175 a year in property tax, and that's for the whole
Insane.
year. It's insane, right? And my new place now, I pay 75 bucks, 75, $80 a year from property tax. Are you still there? Are you in shock?
I don't
How
know.
much?
I know these numbers. I know they're really low, but every single time I hear them, there's like, I don't know. There's coming from New York where, people pay minimum 10 grand, 15
Yeah.
grand. My in-laws pay over 30 grand a year for their property tax. So to hear someone say they pay $80 is just insanity to me, but it's amazing. And it's
Yeah.
it's amazing that's one of the huge attractions, right? Right? Why people are so eager to go and retire to PV because
Mhm.
you can have this amazing lifestyle that is affordable.
Yes.
Which brings me kind of like to cost of living.
Mhm.
So give me a breakdown, give me a sense of like how much things cost on a day-to-day basis once you live there.
Yeah. Perfect example. My cell phone, I pay $25, the equivalent of $25 a month, and that includes calling unlimited to the United States and Canada, and unlimited here. And when I go to the States or Canada, there's no roaming. My home phone, I think it's just under 20 bucks, and that includes the high-speed internet and unlimited calling to the States and Canada. Gasoline right now here is around $1 a liter, so that's really affordable. It's kind of comparable to some of the cities in the States, but still compared to Los Angeles, it's considerably less. My HOA dues here are very, very low. I pay, I think, under $200. Grocery shopping, I would say it's about half the cost of what I used to pay in Los Angeles for food. And my electricity, I just paid it the other day, and at my place it comes out every 2 months. And I was using the AC a lot recently, and it was $50 a month still. So that's really nothing. And for someone who lives on a fixed income, I mean, all these things are really, really important, right? I mean, just when I was in LA for Thanksgiving recently, and again, I mean, I go out to lunch with my family. You can't, get away with less than $150, $175. I went to the movies with my brother, his wife, my sister, and I, and just the movie tickets, some snacks, and parking. It came out to $185. That's a movie in the afternoon for four. So, I go to the movies here, and it's stadium seating, reclining chairs. You can order food. You have a server that comes, to your chair, and it's seven
Really?
dollars. Yeah, yeah. It's a VIP movie theater. It's totally cool. You can order cocktails, snacks, and they'll just bring it right to you.
Wow. And that's $7?
Well, it's $7 for the ticket, and then whatever you're going to consume. So you can probably
Right.
spend around 15, 20 bucks in food and drinks.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. My God. And I mean, I know that healthcare is a real big reason why people are attracted to Vallarta and Mexico in general, right?
Hmm.
I took my COVID tests and I've had tours of hospitals in Vallarta, and just the level of care. I think that's what people always talk about, is just how caring the doctors are, and that they're actually more educated, believe it or not. They actually have to do one more year of like community service or something than, say, people, kids, not kids, but pre-med students here in the United States. And a
Yeah.
lot of them are actually educated in the United States, right?
Yeah, and then the medical schools here, I mean, they're fantastic, especially in Guadalajara and Mexico City, and they've got all the state of the art equipment. I mean, there's this big misconception, unfortunately, in the States that Mexico doesn't have good healthcare, but it's really quite the opposite. And you're absolutely right, Risa. It's not just the affordable good healthcare, but also the type of care you get. Over here, the doctors, it's not uncommon for the doctors to give you their cell phone numbers, and you could text them on WhatsApp and communicate with them. I just went for my annual checkup, and the doctor read my report, and he said, here's my WhatsApp, and just contact me if you ever need anything. And this is a brand new doctor. I've never met him before. So it's not uncommon. My friend Randy, had both his knees replaced this year, and they would send physical therapists over to his place, I think like 2 or 3 times a week. Doctor just have picked them up, dropped them back off, and that's all included in their fees. So in the States, I mean, that's going to cost you an arm and a leg, and if they provide that kind of service. But here in PV, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, I know that doctors do house calls as well, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
And that they have doctors in pharmacies. So if you have something like a cold or whatever, you can just go to the local pharmacy, of which there is one on every corner, like there are
Yeah.
Starbucks here, and you can be seen by the doctor just at the pharmacy. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, there are pharmacies over here, and some of them do have doctors on site. So if you have any questions, they'll answer them for you. And again, here the meds are a fraction of the cost. So not everything is available here, so it's really important to find out if your meds are available in Mexico. If not, if there's something comparable, or how are you going to ship your medicine down here. So don't assume that you can just throw it in a carrier, have them ship it down here, you'll get them. It's not going to work that way. So it's really important to get connected with a with a healthcare specialist down here, or maybe one of the doctors, and they'll tell you what's available and what's not.
I will say though, so insurance is really affordable if you're under 65, right? But it
Yes.
does get quite costly if you have pre-existing conditions and if you're over 65. So that's something to consider. It's not impossible, it's just much more expensive.
Yeah, so if you're going to get insurance for the first time in Mexico and you're over that age, it's going to be a challenge to get it. But if you, like, for example, I've had the health insurance here for, I don't know, over 12, 13 years now. When I turn 65, hopefully I'll make it. They're not going to just cut me off. I mean, I still can go on with it. But if you're just getting it for the first time and you're over 65, that may be a bit of a challenge. So that's something, again, to speak with a healthcare specialist, a professional down here, or an insurance broker, and they'll kind of walk you through all the steps.
Yeah, because I know that there are some people who still choose to do major, operations or whatever back in the States or in Canada or whatever. So they still keep their Medicare or whatnot. But I also do know, like Randy and Craig, they are in their 70s, or they're both over 65. They both have
Don't tell
expat
Craig
insurance.
that. Craig's not 70 yet. He'll kill you.
Okay. Over 65.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I do know that they both have expat insurance.
Yes.
They probably pay comparable to what Americans pay, if you're over 65.
Yeah.
In,
And there are
in
new
terms of Medicare
insurance.
and supplemental.
There are some new insurance programs that are coming out all the time. For example, we have our we have our annual real estate fair the first quarter of every year, and we're going to start this up again in 2023, and hopefully carry that on. And one of the doctors that are going to be speaking at the real estate fair next year, he was mentioning to me that they're working on some new insurance policy for expats. So there's always something new. I don't know all the details of it. He's going to provide that to me once it's available, hopefully by the time we have the real estate fair. So just because something might not be available now doesn't mean that there's something in the works that's coming out soon. Again, people can contact me and I can get them, connected with the right person to see, what's going on in the terms of insurance and what's coming out there for them, for the expats, and of people of a certain age or have a certain condition, pre-existing condition.
So how, if you're moving there and you're over 65, you're there to retire, but you don't speak any Spanish, how difficult do you think it is to live there full time? I mean, your Spanish is pretty limited, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But I
I
mean, you
mean,
speak the other languages of love.
well, yeah, that's a big concern, I think, for anyone moving to a country where English is not the native language. Luckily for PV, a lot of the places where you go, they do speak English. A lot of the more touristy areas, or the I would say the more commercial areas, right, from the hotel zone, the marina, Bucerias, where you have a lot of Americans and Canadians that are vacationing there or have retired there. When you move in more in inland, where we have more like local families that have been here for generations, and the mom and pop businesses there, your chances are you're not going to find someone who speaks English. But for the most part, most of the areas where you're going to be hanging out and shopping, you do have English speaking people. So it makes that whole transition of moving to a different country a lot easier, right? So you don't feel like you're not going to be able to communicate to go from point A to point B. And then God forbid, if you need medical assistance, you're not going to freak out and wonder, oh my gosh, how am I going to explain what's going on and where do I need to go? So, and a lot of the hospitals and a lot of the clinics here, they do have a bilingual staff, so that really makes it a lot more comfortable knowing that if you need medical attention, you can communicate at the front desk and with the doctor. So that's really nice. But I was able to get along here, and over the years, you just kind of pick up on words. I mean, every day you pick up on a word, you pick up on a slang, and I tell people, don't put so much unnecessary pressure on yourself that you have to learn a brand new language within like a month or a year or 2 years. It just takes time. Just like you have a lot of immigrants that move to other parts of the world, and for example, my parents didn't speak any English whatsoever, and they gradually learned. Just my mom from watching television. My family bought a business. My dad was sitting behind the counter, and he just kind of started chit-chatting or trying to communicate with people. And eventually, before he passed away, he spoke English really well. I mean, his grammar wasn't great, but he understood everything and he was able to communicate. So if my folks can do it as immigrants, I think anyone can.
Yeah, and I feel like people are very accommodating and very understanding when you don't know a word. And to be frank, I mean, we all have cell phones, we all have Google Translate and all the things,
Yes.
to make things easier. So, do you think that having a car is important in order to get around in Vallarta? Is that
So the
something you would
first,
recommend?
well, the first two. So I moved here full time, right? If you're living here part time, I would say maybe you can get away without needing a car. But the first 2.5 years that I lived here, I didn't have a car. And I just kind of walked around everywhere. And I kind of wanted that too. I just wanted to live without a car for a while. Because in LA, you're always in the car. Even if you have to go 2 blocks to visit your neighbor, you drive there, you don't walk. I know. We're kind of jaded in LA.
So
Remember that song, Nobody Walks in LA? It's true.
uh,
And then, when I went to real estate, I needed a car, of course. But also, if you're going to be taking, for me, buses and cabs day in and day out every single time I want to go somewhere, you just kind of might get tired of it. So if you don't want to drive, then you don't have to. You can take cabs and take the bus, all the time. But I think having a car at some point is kind of convenient, especially if you want to take a trip. You want to go to, let's say, Sayulita, which is around an hour and 15 minutes north of PV. You want to go into San Sebastian, which is in the mountains. That's around an hour and 20 minutes northeast of PV. Or if you want to drive, down south to Miss Maloya, which is 20 minutes south, and visit friends. I kind of enjoy, just driving. And then plus, I have family and friends coming down. It's kind of, I kind of enjoy playing a tour guide from time to time, and making your Costco runs. Going to the pet store. So it's convenient having a car. You definitely don't need one. You don't have to have one. That's one of the beauties of living in Vallarta. But I think at some point it's convenient to have a car.
Yeah. Uber's all over PV, so that makes it very
Yes.
convenient, and there are buses as well.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're single and you are looking to move to Mexico, I know that PV is a pretty welcoming place for singles. Would you say? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we have people from all walks of life down here, but definitely there are a lot of single people that have moved here as well. Um, and I have friends who rent in El Centro. That's where the Malecon, the boardwalk, is at, and that's pretty central to everything, just like the romantic zone. The romantic zone, hands down, was when most people like think of. That's where they want to go to. Something to consider about the romantic zone, even though it's number one in terms of real estate and rental investment, having a great investment property in PV is fantastic if you want that passive income coming in. But there are a lot of other great areas that have been growing, like Versailles and Fluvial. Fluvial is a fairly new region. When I say new, I would say more or less around maybe 15 plus years old. That place is growing. That's where Costco is located. There are a whole bunch of banks there and restaurants. And its neighbor is Versailles. And Versailles has had a lot of condo buildings going up there over the last 7 years. And a lot of restaurants and cafes have opened up there. I kind of call it the new romantic zone in a sense. And whereas when I first moved here, you didn't see that many Americans and Canadians living in those areas, but now it's not uncommon when you see them walking around and buying there, and that's their home. So that's a really great area for anyone, whether you're a couple or a single. Marina Vallarta is great. It's just south of the airport, and you have all condo buildings along the beach and some gated communities in the middle, and you have all the shopping area. There's a wonderful steakhouse called Sonora Grill Prime. There's a Starbucks there, and all these restaurants along the seawall, and where the boating docks are located. And then if it's further south, you have the hotel zone. So when I first moved here, the hotel zone was just hotels. But now you have a lot of condo buildings there as well on the beach. You have fantastic ocean views, and you have all the amenities that you want right then and there. And there are all these, and right behind it would be Fluvial and Versailles. So they're all kind of like nesting in the same general region. And any of those places, you can, as a single, like a friend of mine is here right now, and she and her cute little dog, and she's rented in the hotel zone. She's rented in Versailles, Fluvial, and the Marina, and she loves all of them for different reasons. So there are a lot of options for people out there.
Which actually, as we're kind of wrapping this discussion up, leads me to, so if someone wants to give PV a try, right? What would you recommend that they do
So when you say
aside
try,
from going there? I mean, is it visiting different, like living in different neighborhoods and the like, or?
yeah, I would say if you've never been to Vallarta, I would say maybe rent in the romantic zone, because that way you can walk out to the restaurants, the cafes, and it's easy to socialize with people. You really don't need a car. There are little mom and pop markets, grocery stores. There's an outdoor fresh produce market in the romantic zone as well. There are banks, and you have a lot of English-speaking people. So if your comfort zone is not all there, you want to make sure you can communicate with people, I would say stay in the romantic zone. And if you can stay for more than a week or a week minimum, that'd be great, because that way you can go and visit Fluvial, Versailles, go to the marina, have lunch or have dinner, go to different beaches and just kind of hang out, but make the romantic zone your hub if you're a first-time person, right? And I say the second time, if you like PV, you want to come back and you're considering maybe investing and buying a home somewhere, maybe you rent in that particular area. So if, let's say, Fluvial and Versailles calls your attention, you're thinking of buying there, I would say rent in Fluvial or Versailles, stay there for the week, and then you get to see and feel the vibe in the daytime and at night. A neighborhood can be one thing in the morning, but when the sun sets, it could be something totally different. So it might not be for you. And that way you can really get to absorb that region and see what it's like. And then it might not be. So if it's not, then if there's another place you want to stay at, I would say come back and stay there. But while you're staying in that region, start looking at properties in that neighborhood. And if you have like a number 2, number 3 list, where you might want to consider moving to, and then look in those areas as well. And get yourself connected with a real estate professional that's part of AMPI. AMPI is the Real Estate Association in Mexico. And then have your property tour set up. So when you're here for the week, you can look at multiple places and then see if one of those is right for you.
That sounds so great. And wow. Taniel, thank you so much. And if people really are interested, you can check out dreamretirementinmexico.com, where we have a full in-depth program on what you need to know before moving to Mexico. But Taniel, thank you so much. As always, it's so much fun to talk with you.
Same here, Risa. Thank you.